said it so many times today, but he's your favourite fighter. One of my favourite fighters to watch him. I hope when I beat him he doesn't retire. I hope he has some more fights. I hope he doesn't retire once I beat him, but that's what's going to happen. I'm going to beat him just like I beat Michael Chandler. Beat him for the punch on the feet, ruin his legs with kicks. I'm going to damage his calf, and if it does go to the ground, it'll be over even faster.
A major prediction just dropped that's going to absolutely shock the MMA world. We're talking about UFC 304's interim lightweight title fight between Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje, and the expert analysis coming out is completely splitting the combat sports community down the middle. This isn't just another co-main event. This is a career-defining moment that could reshape the entire lightweight division. And after hearing what these veterans are saying behind the scenes, I'm telling you right now, everything you think you know about this matchup might be dead wrong. The stakes couldn't be higher. The pressure is suffocating, and one of these fighters is walking into a trap they don't even see coming.
Paddy's going to be able to get him down, so he's going to have to fight with him. Unless Paddy can stay super disciplined for 25 minutes, stay at distance, pick his shots. Justin's just a bigger puncher, and he'll put himself in harm's way to land one of those shots. And it's tough to stay away from it for 25 minutes.
Do you think that the UFC wants Paddy to win?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, because Justin's talking about retirement, and Paddy's still young, and they can continue to build him. There's a bunch of fights we haven't seen with Paddy. So it's more marketable if Paddy wins.
And so how do you see it playing out?
I think Justin's...
Here's where the first bombshell lands. A seasoned veteran of the fight game just dropped some serious truth bombs, and his reasoning is going to make you completely rethink this entire fight. This expert pointed directly to Justin Gaethje's extensive background in those grueling championship-level 5-round contests as the absolute make-or-break factor for this upcoming clash. Think about it for a second. We're talking about a fighter who's been through literal wars inside that octagon. Gaethje has endured countless brutal skirmishes at the highest level, and that gives him something you simply cannot teach in any gym anywhere in the world. It's that deep, innate wisdom to not just survive, but to actually flourish when the fight goes into those deep, dark waters. When exhaustion sets in and every second becomes a battle for survival, Gaethje knows how to dig deeper than his opponents ever thought possible. That championship experience isn't just a resume builder. It's psychological warfare.
But I'm going to go with Paddy, you know what I mean? There's been a couple of times where I thought Paddy's had big tests in front of him and he's passed them. And, you know, he showed me in his last fight he can really stick to a game plan. And he's going to need that with a Gaethje. So I'm going to go Paddy.
But wait, it gets even more interesting. Gaethje himself has been throwing some serious shade at Paddy Pimblett's striking ability, and he's raising massive question marks about whether the baddie can even land successful takedowns against someone as defensively solid as himself. This is huge, because it essentially forces Pimblett into a seriously vulnerable position where exchanging heavy punches becomes not just probable, but almost unavoidable. And here's the kicker that nobody's talking about. If Pimblett can't get this fight to the ground, he's stuck in the exact place where Gaethje does his most devastating work. We're talking about a fighter who's knocked out some of the most durable competitors in the division. Tony Ferguson, Donald Cerrone, Edson Barboza, all victims of Gaethje's brutal striking game. The veteran's assessment is ice-cold but brutally honest. Pimblett's real uphill battle is maintaining that laser-like discipline throughout the entire 25-minute championship duration.
If he gets it done, it's because Justin's just so shot. He's been in so many wars, you know, he's been around the company so long, and that knockout to Max Holloway, he just hasn't recovered from. So if he gets a win that, then yeah, there. But this is like, seems like a smash spot. Like if I was able to bet fighting, which we're not allowed to because the feds got involved because that moron coach James Krause screwed it up for all of us. But this seems like a smash spot on Gaethje because everybody's on, and all the public is driving the money line for Paddy Pimblett to be the favorite. But you know, I think Justin's still a tough dog, and he's going to come out there and give his all, and he doesn't want to lose this fight. This could be his last fight if he loses. So, you know, I think he's going to put Paddy to the test, and, you know, Paddy, you know, usually has to control the wrestling aspect, put guys to the ground to get his submission and to get his striking game working. So, you know, I don't know. Justin's shot on one hand. They're trying to give him an easy win on a silver platter to Paddy to build him up. You know, he's got a little bowl cut and a little mouth, and they think he's the next star. So, I don't know. It's a tough fight to judge. You know, how much is left in the tank for Justin versus a guy that's absolute nobody that hasn't actually accomplished anything in the sport.
Now get this part because it's absolutely crucial. We're talking about staying composed under the most intense pressure imaginable, picking out those precise, game-changing moments to strike, and absolutely avoiding getting drawn into prolonged energy-sapping brawls. That kind of maturity, that supreme mental fortitude, is something that often only develops after years and years of fighting at the championship level. And here's what makes this even more terrifying for Pimblett. Geith delivers significantly more raw power in his punches, and he shows zero hesitation, complete readiness to brave danger just to unleash his own destructive blows. The man literally walks through fire to land his shots, trying to evade that relentless, persistent aggression for 5 full rounds. That's an absolutely monumental challenge for anyone, let alone someone stepping into their very first title contest. It's a baptism by fire, and the pressure is unlike anything Pimblett has ever experienced.
Don't get pulled into chaos. Don't get pulled into a grappling or wrestling or showing that you could do what he can do better, right? I think on the feet, Justin, you have a really big advantage. And if you're patient, you're smart, you systematically break him down, kind of like how you did against Tony Ferguson, it'll be an easy night for you. For Paddy, I think you got to create chaos. You got to wrestle as much as possible. Yeah, he has college wrestling accolades, but this isn't college wrestling. This is UFC. This is fighting. This is punches. This is grappling. This is everything involved. So if I'm Paddy, I'm going to shoot in early and test it early. Because when you guys are both dry, that's where it comes. We've seen guys like Habib catch a low kick and shoot off it, or as he's pulling that kick back, shoot off it, pushing him to the fence. We've seen him get pressured. We don't want to get hit by him. Everybody who gets hit by him says how hard he hits. He's one of the hardest hitters in the division. So let's not test your chin. Let's not say Scousers don't get knocked out, right? We don't need to do that. I think your path to victory is clear. It's on the ground. I think you will have a big advantage if it gets into those hard grappling exchanges. And especially if you get multiple takedowns on him. You were able to control Michael Chandler, who's another college wrestler, on the ground pretty easily, mounted him. And you say you want to do the same thing with Justin? Let's put that plan to action. My pick, I think I'm going to go with Justin. I think Paddy just gets hit a lot on the feet. Yeah, he's pretty much clean his last 2 victories, but Jared Gordon had some clean shots on him, big hooks, big crosses. And Justin kind of like boxes, kind of like Jared. Clean, he likes dirty boxing, he likes inside boxing. Justin's very good there, so I think I'm going to pick Justin in this one. I don't know if he knocks him out or finishes him. I do think kind of would be a decision. I'm going on the Tony Ferguson type fight because Paddy's tough. He's not hard to break. I mean, it's not easy to break.
Hold up, though, because we're about to get a completely different perspective that changes everything. Alexander Volkanovski, the reigning featherweight king himself, sees things from a totally distinct angle as UFC 304 approaches. And this is where it gets wild. Volk is actually predicting that Paddy Pimblett will prevail and claim that interim title. His reasoning centers entirely on what he's personally observed from Pimblett whenever the baddie has faced those monumental high-pressure tests throughout his UFC career. Volkanovski pointed out that time and time again, when critics and doubters piled on the Liverpool native before vital contests, Pimblett consistently responded by executing his game plan with flawless precision, silencing the skeptics every single time. This isn't just blind faith. This is coming from one of the most cerebral fighters in the sport, someone who understands championship pressure better than almost anyone alive.
More skilled, more experienced, I think better fighter all around, Justin Gaethje. But I also have been on record and said that Paddy Pimblett is better than a lot of people think he is. You know, because of his haircut and the way he talks. And when I fought him, he's better than a lot of people give him credit for. He's got long reach, good kicks, pretty darn patient and composed in there. But Gaethje's a whole different animal. So if I had to bet, I'd go Justin Gaethje, interim champion, and then he beats Ilia Topuria later on.
Here's why Volkanovski's take matters so much. He specifically hammered home Pimblett's last performance against Michael Chandler as irrefutable proof of his incredible capacity to stick to a predetermined game plan, even under the most intense, suffocating pressure imaginable. Think about that fight for a second. Chandler is an absolute destroyer, a former Bellator champion who's knocked out some of the best lightweights on the planet. But Pimblett didn't get drawn into a brawl. He didn't panic when things got chaotic. He stuck to his strategy, found his openings, and got the job done. That particular skill, that mental fortitude to follow the script when everything is falling apart around you, is going to be absolutely crucial when you're standing across the octagon from someone as dangerous, as explosive, and as utterly unpredictable as Justin Gaethje. Volkanovski knows championship fights, and he's seeing something in Pimblett that others are missing.
I don't know, dude. I'm kind of leaning towards Paddy. But the way he does get hit with left hooks, he looks so good against Michael Chandler. Paddy's got a lot of ways to win. He's a scouser. He's a scouser. Scousers don't get knocked out, you mushroom.
He KO'd Dustin with a head kick too. The fight before the Max Holloway one, which is pretty impressive.
But here's where the controversy really explodes. Colby Covington just shared his unfiltered viewpoint with Submission Radio, and let me tell you, he was visibly frustrated with what he's seeing. Covington made it crystal clear that he's genuinely irritated that the current betting markets are so heavily backing Paddy Pimblett. He even went so far as to say that if active fighters were actually allowed to bet on matches, he'd be putting serious money, probably a small fortune, on Justin Gaethje taking the win. Despite all that extensive public backing, with everyone seemingly gravitating toward the charismatic British contender, Covington sees Gaethje as this incredibly strong, relentless opponent who will test Pimblett like no one he's ever faced before. This isn't just typical Colby trash talk. He's genuinely frustrated by what he sees as public perception completely missing the mark.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, right? And that's, I mean, God, I hate kind of get into this too much, but I mean, that's really that's the definition of, a monopoly where a single promoter owns the title and the rankings. And it's not a good thing for the sport, in my opinion. And I have to question what it's going to do for the longevity of the sport. I don't think in the short term it's really going to make a big difference, right? It's going to sell the next fight, right? It's going to sell the next pay-per-view. But trends tend to come and go, right? Fads tend to come and go. At some point, to have staying power and lasting power, I think it requires, a meritocracy-based system. It's going to require, some, if you want to bring in guys like Arman Tsarukyan or Movsar Evloev, I always mess up how I say his name. You want to bring in these Olympic wrestling level guys. I mean, they don't want to have to go out there and put on some ridiculous show to become a champion. They don't want to have to go on Instagram and start a podcast and make whatever kind of skits on social media and this silly kind of stuff. They just want to be a world champion because they want to be the best athlete. And that's what makes me wonder how the staying power is going to be, right? When you're dealing with guys that are, legitimate athletes that want to be legitimate athletes, and they're getting passed up by guys that are entertainers.
According to Covington, this colossal challenge that Pimblett faces on fight night will be the ultimate litmus test. It will reveal, once and for all, if he genuinely ranks among the absolute elite of the lightweight division, or if his meteoric rise was built more on hype than hardcore skill. And honestly, Covington might have a point that's making people uncomfortable. When you strip away the social media following and the entertaining personality, what are we really looking at? Pimblett's biggest wins have come against fighters who aren't exactly championship caliber. Jordan Leavitt, Jared Gordon, Tony Ferguson, these aren't the killers that typically earn interim title shots. Covington is essentially calling out the entire system, suggesting that popularity and marketability are trumping legitimate contender status. The question becomes, is Pimblett ready for this level of competition, or is he being fed to the wolves for the sake of a compelling narrative?
And Justin Gaethje, who do you favor in that fight?
I gotta go with Gaethje. I feel like he's the one that loves to get down and throw fist for fist. And he's also got the Division I wrestling to negate some of the biggest skill sets of Paddy. Paddy's a very dominant grappler when it comes to submissions. I think Gaethje has the tools to keep it where he wants.
And Covington isn't alone in his skepticism. Dan Hooker also jumped into the discussion, sharing strikingly similar feelings and strongly opposing Paddy Pimblett being listed as the overwhelming favorite in the betting odds. Hooker immediately zeroed in on Justin Gaethje's incredibly keen, almost impenetrable takedown defense as a monumental obstacle for any part of Pimblett's game plan. He didn't mince words, flat out stating his prediction that Gaethje walks away with the win. But here's where Hooker's analysis gets really interesting. He's not just looking at Gaethje's defensive wrestling, he's examining Pimblett's tendencies in striking exchanges. Hooker specifically emphasized Pimblett's consistent habit of taking considerable damage during stand-up confrontations, and here's the terrifying part for Paddy fans. This vulnerability becomes incredibly more hazardous when you're facing someone with Justin Gaethje's legendary finishing power.
Dude, Paddy's not bad. He's very beatable, and Gaethje's very beatable as well. But when it goes into the passion
and how upsetting Justin Gaethje has always been about not getting that real title shot, and they just keep dangling it right there again. Paddy's in for a new treat, right? Paddy's the one that's never fought for a belt. He's going in there. He's going to be trying to, get that stuff. He's going to feel a little bit more pressure. He's going to have that little bit of excitedness.
Muhammad also weighed in with similar concerns, and his breakdown is absolutely chilling for anyone backing Pimblett. He firmly believes that those defensive lapses, those moments of vulnerability that we've seen in previous fights, will ultimately prove costly against a finisher like Gaethje. We're talking about a fighter who doesn't just win fights, he ends careers. Look at what happened to Tony Ferguson. Look at the damage he inflicted on Donald Cerrone. These aren't just victories, they're statements. Muhammad's analysis cuts straight to the core issue. Pimblett's striking defense simply isn't championship level yet, and against someone with Gaethje's finishing instincts, those defensive gaps become potential fightenders. The question isn't whether Gaethje will find openings, it's whether Pimblett can survive when he does.
Matchup, I think 5 rounds. If this is the common take, everybody gonna say that, not only me, but if Justin Gaethje doesn't stop him on the beginning, he's going to lose. I think everybody thinks like that, and I think Paddy Pimblett will beat Justin Gaethje. That's what I think.
Now here's where things get really fascinating. Michael Chandler, Iron Mike himself, offered some uniquely compelling insight, and his perspective carries serious weight because he's in this singular position of having actually shared the octagon with both of these contenders. Following his own fight where he faced Pimblett, Chandler gained direct, first-hand understanding of capabilities that many casual observers severely underestimate. He readily admits that the Liverpool native actually holds far more skills than the average fan recognizes, a testament to his legitimate talent that goes beyond the social media personality. But here's the crucial part that should terrify Pimblett's supporters. When Chandler was absolutely pressed to make a firm, definitive prediction, he still leaned heavily toward Justin Gaethje, basing his choice on Gaethje's unparalleled experience and overall well-rounded skill set.
Then I'm glad it's over and I never want to do it again. I'm like, the fans don't ever ask for a rematch or anything like that, because that would have never. I'm like, I'm glad. He's unique, man, and he's one of my favorite guys to watch. So but if you want to beat Justin Gaethje, you have to. So he's a forward fighter and a pressure fighter that he will stand in the pocket, and he's gonna throw everything he got in that pocket. If you don't meet him, you'll get chewed up. So Paddy, the way to beat a guy who does this, very violent, aggressive pressure fighter, you have to meet him. You have to throw when he throws. So you got to be brave, and you have to go when he goes in between his shots. If you do that, you got a fair shot. If you don't do that, if you're not brave and courageous and throw when he throws in between his shots, it's going to be a really long night. It's going to be a hard night.
The former Bellator champion's reasoning goes deeper than just technical analysis. Chandler firmly believes that Gaethje represents an entirely different class of challenge, a level of opponent that Pimblett simply hasn't encountered anywhere along his career path. And Chandler didn't stop there. He even went further, boldly suggesting that Gaethje could potentially go on to unify the championship belts after this fight, making a strong statement about his belief in the highlight's championship potential. This is coming from someone who's fought at the absolute highest level in multiple organizations, someone who's shared the cage with legends like Benson Henderson, Eddie Alvarez, and Charles Oliveira. When Chandler talks about levels of competition, people listen. His assessment suggests that while Pimblett has talent, he's still operating at a different tier than true championship-level fighters like Gaethje.
#1 contender. But if Paddy can pull it off, unbelievable. That'll be 4 champs, 2 interims and 2 legit, well 3 legit now with Tom being promoted from the UK that have become champions. And for Justin Gaethje, This is the final go. This is the final crack of the whip. The man's had 2 title fights in the past, Charles Oliveira to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and now he gets to go up against Paddy Pimblett. Now, talking about the matchup, of course, it is an easier fight for Justin than what it is against Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the greatest of all time. Islam Makhachev, the current pound for pound, and according to many people, a man that is surpassing Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? So in that regard, it is an easier matchup. Will Paddy be able to take him down? Will he dance around the octagon? Yes, he will. Will he try and replicate the game plan of Max Holloway? Of course he will. Who wouldn't try and do that? You aren't going to stand and go toe-to-toe with Justin Gaethje because the man does have knockout power. But underestimate Paddy at your peril.
But wait, here's where the plot thickens dramatically. Sugar Sean O'Malley is completely separating himself from the majority opinion, strongly endorsing Paddy Pimblett to claim that interim title. The bantamweight champion, known for his flashy finishes and keen fight IQ, views this matchup as a genuinely perfect stylistic contest for the British fighter to conquer and really showcase his skills. O'Malley didn't just pick a winner. He went all in with a specific, detailed forecast that's going to blow your mind. He believes Pimblett will spot a golden opportunity sometime in round 2 and will capitalize on it with a spectacular rear naked choke finish. Now that's not just a random guess that shows serious faith in Pimblett's elite ground skills and his almost supernatural intuition for sensing precisely when opponents become vulnerable during the chaos of combat. O'Malley's prediction is based on something most people aren't considering: Pimblett's finishing ability on the ground. While everyone's focused on the striking exchanges and Gaethje's knockout power, O'Malley is looking at what happens if this fight hits the mat. He firmly believes that those submission skills, that ability to capitalize on small windows of opportunity, will ultimately emerge as the crucial element when everything is on the line. And honestly, O'Malley might be seeing something that the striking-focused analysts are missing. Pimblett's ground game is legitimately elite level, and if he can survive the early storm and drag Gaethje into deep waters, those submission threats become very real. The question becomes, can Pimblett weather the striking exchanges long enough to implement his ground game? Here's where the conversation takes a completely different turn. Matt Brown, the immortal himself, voiced opinions that reached far beyond simple fight predictions, diving headfirst into a broader, more troubling criticism of current UFC title shot allocation principles. This seasoned veteran expressed genuine frustration regarding what this specific interim title fight actually represents for the fundamental fairness of championship opportunities in the promotion. Brown absolutely sees Paddy Pimblett's swift, almost unprecedented elevation to an interim title shot as completely disconnected from genuine athletic achievement. Instead, he argues, it seems tied far more directly to social media presence and raw marketability metrics, the factors that ultimately boost pay-per-view revenue and fill seats. His criticism cuts to the heart of what many hardcore fans are feeling but afraid to say out loud. To drive his point home, Brown highlighted the stark, undeniable contrast with Arman Tsarukyan, who has systematically and methodically met every single competitive criterion conceivable. Tsarukyan has beaten top contenders, demonstrated his ability against the division's fiercest competitors, and built a resume that screams title contention. Yet despite that utterly dominant record and clear championship credentials, Tsarukyan inexplicably found himself passed over for title consideration, while Pimblett was handed this prime opportunity. Brown's assessment doesn't exist in a vacuum. It powerfully mirrors widespread concerns regarding how championships are truly earned in the current era, an era where fame and marketability frequently outweigh pure athletic achievement. As Brown bluntly put it, the message being sent is that Paddy's popularity trumps Arman's accomplishments, and that's a bitter pill for purists to swallow. Now let's hear from legendary coach Uriah Faber, the California Kid, who offered perspectives that firmly align with the Gaethje supporters. The former WEC champion truly perceives Gaethje as a fighter who genuinely thrives when contests devolve into those wild, chaotic brawls that separate contenders from champions. Gaethje shows absolutely no reluctance to absorb heavy punishment if it means he can unleash his own devastating counterattacks in return. This isn't reckless aggression, it's calculated violence, the kind that has made him one of the most feared finishers in the division. While Faber definitely acknowledges the inherent danger in Paddy Faber's tricky submission game, he's banking heavily on Faber's rock-solid division wrestling foundation to provide the crucial defensive measures needed to neutralize those ground threats. Faber analysis goes deeper into the tactical chess match that this fight represents. That elite wrestling base isn't just about defense. It's specifically designed to enable Geith to dictate where this fight takes place, to guide engagements back to the striking realm where he possesses distinct fight-ending advantages and operates with supreme confidence. Faber sees this as a battle of wills and skill sets, with Geith having the tools to keep the fight standing and Pimblett needing to find creative ways to drag it to the ground. The wrestler versus grappler dynamic becomes crucial, because whoever can impose their preferred fighting environment will likely determine the outcome. Faber's betting on the wrestler's ability to stuff takedowns and keep the fight in the danger zone for Pimblett. Here's where the psychological warfare gets absolutely fascinating. Tony Ferguson, El Cukai himself, brings a unique mental perspective to this matchup, drawing from his incredibly long and storied UFC tenure that's seen every type of pressure situation imaginable. Ferguson proposed that sheer psychological drive could very well play a critical, often underestimated role in this fight, a factor that raw statistics and technical breakdowns simply cannot fully capture or predict. His analysis cuts to something most experts are ignoring: the mental baggage that both fighters bring into this contest. Ferguson posits that Justin Geith's complex history with championship opportunities, including those interim title wins and his frequently thwarted, heartbreaking attempts at undisputed gold, could actually create a subtle yet powerful mental burden that impacts his performance under the ultimate pressure. Conversely, Ferguson sees Pimblett's burning, unyielding desire to secure his first major title as potentially generating the sort of electrifying energy and hunger that literally propels fighters far beyond their usual physical and mental boundaries. This isn't just motivational speak. Ferguson has experienced both sides of this equation throughout his career. He's felt the pressure of expectations and the liberation of having nothing to lose. Having faced multiple opponents at this level, Ferguson sees both fighters as comparable in terms of skill, but he leans marginally toward supporting the hungrier contender, Paddy Pimblett, who's chasing a dream with absolutely everything to gain. That kind of desperate motivation can be a complete game changer when the lights are brightest and the stakes are highest. Switching perspectives entirely, submission specialist Renato Moicano made a confident declaration that's going to shock a lot of people. He's unequivocally predicting that Paddy Pimblett will secure victory through a masterful submission finish, and his reasoning is crystal clear and technically sound. Moicano's analysis centers on a simple but devastating premise. If Justin Geith fails to achieve an early knockout or technical knockout victory in the initial rounds, then this contest will inevitably evolve into complex grappling sequences. And in those scrambles, those transitions, those moments when the fight hits the ground, Moicano firmly believes that Pimblett maintains significant, potentially decisive advantages that could end the fight instantly. But here's the kicker that's going to make you rethink everything about the betting lines. Moicano goes even further, asserting that sportsbooks have completely failed to accurately factor in the massive disparity in submission ability between these two fighters. He argues that the current odds, which heavily favor the striking exchanges, should indicate a significantly closer contest than what's currently being presented to the public. To Moicano, this represents a major blind spot in how casual observers and even some experts are evaluating this high-stakes matchup. Everyone's so focused on the knockout potential and striking exchanges that they're overlooking the nuanced ground game that Pimblett brings to the table. If this fight goes past the second round and hits the mat, Moicano sees a completely different contest than what most people are expecting. Now for a truly unique perspective that changes the entire conversation.